All right. We are live, says YouTube. At least I think that's what it said. Yes, it does say that. Ladies and gentlemen, I am coming to you. We're both coming to you from the wonderful state of Maryland.
Yeah.
And which is a rarity. Like I don't think I've had this happen yet. I think that's what it said. Yes, it does say
look at that. Hold on.
Oh, there's that echo.
I know what that is. I pulled it up on the screen up there.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, don't do that.
You did it. No, we're good. Yeah.
So anyway, guys, I am joined by a friend. So again, if this is a little bit more casual than normal, Mr. Bryan Ewald is here with us today. And you guys may know Bryan from all of his lovely PRS videos that you see on PRS's website and all over YouTube and all that. But Bryan, thanks again for making the time, buddy. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Cool, man.
You've had some great people on here already.
Man, we were talking about it a little bit before, but this has been super fun. And it was kind of I thought I was going to do it once a month when we started this. And my buddy Terry, who does all the artwork for this stuff, he's somebody that I just met through the internet. Like he started following me and subscribing on YouTube. And we started talking a lot about gear and about like the Brothers Landreth and like all that stuff. And he's like, well, I do marketing and art. And I was like, he's like, I'd love to help you with that. And then all of a sudden, it just like after Joey's thing, it just like blew up. So
that's the only reason I said yes. Was just
but yeah, it's been super fun. But I've been trying to like diversify the portfolio, as Dave Chappelle and Wu-Tang would say. Right. So I wanted to talk to you, and you've kind of know the drill here, what I do, but like
I've watched the shows. Yeah.
So I always start off just by asking, and this is something we've probably talked about in the past, but for the people that don't know, you're a multi-instrumentalist based out of like Annapolis, Maryland, which is about an hour from me, hour and a half from me. But like, what was the thing that like set you on the path with music? Like, what was the moment? Like, I definitely have a moment. Like, what was your moment?
I mean, if we go all the way back to the source, it would be like when I was little, we didn't really have a lot of music in my house. Music was background, none of my parents did anything, musically, but I'd go to my grandparents' house who lived in Southwest Virginia, and they had a piano. Like most, a lot of houses would just have a piano as a piece of furniture. And even as a little kid, the first thing I would say hi to everybody, and then I would beeline to it, and I would just sit there and like, I think I remember sitting there playing like I heard the Close Encounters theme or something.
Yeah.
And at like a couple years old, I'm just playing, and they just let me bang around on it. And my mom, we didn't. My parents split up, and I lived with my dad, and I'd go visit my mom on the weekends, and she couldn't buy a piano, didn't have space for it, or she was moving around too much. So she bought me a cheap beat up acoustic guitar when I was like, I think it was my 9th birthday. And it was like, action was like that high. And it was like out of the Penny Saver, which was like the local, ad, classified ad thing.
Pre-Craigslist.
And I wouldn't put it down. I mean, I wanted to sleep with it in my bed, and, I just wanted to play constantly. And then, I was a horrible student in school because all I did was I'd come home and play my guitar all night long. And, it was just an obsession, and music in general, like that, I joined the Columbia Record and Tape Club, out there who are old enough to remember that. And like, I caught the tail end of vinyl, like I got records, and then like right at that time when I was maybe like 10 or 11, like CDs became a thing, and then I switched to that. But like everything I did, every penny I earned went to, I'm still obsessed with. I'm still like a kid, like, when it comes to anything music, listening to it, playing it. And so, I mean, I think I knew right away. I mean, and then, Eddie Van Halen was like, when I was a kid, I heard that and I was like, what? Like, and, I took a piece of plywood before I had an electric guitar. I took a piece of plywood, and with my dad's jigsaw, I cut out a shape that looked like a Strat, basically a Super Strat, and sanded it around so it wasn't sharp on the edges. I sanded the neck so it basically had a curve, And but I drilled a hole in it and I put a coat hanger wire as a trem because I, it had to have a tremolo,
Yeah.
to cut my hand on the sharp edge of the wire that I cut,
Right.
But I would stand there in the mirror and, and at some point I still have my old acoustic. It's back here somewhere, but it has a hole in the back worn through. And at some point, like my mom had like a cheap Radio Shack microphone that went to her stereo, and I jammed it inside the guitar and taped it to the top and put the wire through the back. And I used to plug it into the stereo and turn it all the way up, and it would like feed back. And I thought I invented something. I was like, I invented an electric guitar,
Nice.
But I mean, it was just, I don't think there was ever a point in my life that I don't remember not knowing I was going to do this, or, it was all I thought about.
Yeah. Did you ever do so I had this Sony boombox that you could record. So it was like a dual deck, boombox.
Yep.
Did you ever do the multi-track thing where you would use like one stereo for like whatever? I mean, I used to make up these like fake radio shows when I was a kid, and I would like play a song and record it, from the other. Did you ever do that stuff in multi-track like that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, it's somewhere around here, or I might have it out in the other room because it needs work, but I still have my first tape deck, and it was a Sony component. My dad bought me like some component stuff as a kid, so I like had a nice little Sony power amp, and then I had a component cassette deck, and it had two different 1/4-inch inputs. So it had a left and a right microphone input, and it had this big slider for the input level. My guitar amp would not distort. If you turn it on 10, it was a little solid state thing, would not distort. But if I plugged into my stereo and hit record and turn the input level up, the guitar solo on Easy Like a Sunday Morning, like that buzzy, like direct to the board, overloading like bees in a box, that was like coming out of my speakers. And I thought it was the greatest thing in the world because it was like, it's distortion, Yeah. And I like, it had a little sound on sound button. We had a tape deck so you could record over top of something. So I did that a couple times where I would play into one tape deck and do the other one. But then my dad had a tape deck that had a sound on sound, and it degenerated each level. So like your first track got real quiet. And with my paper route money and my first job, one of the first things I bought was a Tascam Porta Studio.
Nice.
So I had a 4-track like as a kid, because that was like, to me, like, how do I make sounds, how to record it? And I tried everything I could do, anything,
That's awesome. That's funny. I have in my closet right back here, I have one of those. I still have that Tascam 4-track that I had from middle school and high school where I used to demo stuff. Those things were awesome, dude. And then like, how much is your mind blown when you realize you can bounce tracks? You're just like, I don't just have a 4-track. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I can bounce all this down to that track, and then this one to that one and that one. It's just like, that stuff is so fun, man. Like, I remember when I was a kid, my parents didn't know any better. They bought me a bass amp when I got my electric guitar. Had no clue. My buddy came over and was like, dude, why are you playing through a bass amp? I was like, what are you talking about? What's a bass amp? You know what I mean? Because like I was like trying to figure out songs on Nevermind, and I was like, why does my guitar not sound like that? This is supposed to be a guitar amp. You know what I mean? So what was the so you and I are pretty similar with our musical interests and stuff. But you know what? Before I get into that, you got to tell the story about that one guitar that got away that you got back. That was such a great story. Yeah, do it. So Bryan has this great story about that was like one of the first electric guitars you had, right?
Yeah. Well, so check it out. It's so that first guitar my mom bought, I still have that. It's over there. It's a Harmony acoustic, like 60s era. I mean, it was probably 20 years old when she gave it to me, and or whatever, close to it. And then my dad took me about a year and a half later, took me to get an electric. And I'd been playing the acoustic for, a year and a half or something. And it was this weird harmony electric where like the fretboard went into the body like this far, like, and the cutaway is still here, like it was the weirdest thing. And the two pickups were super close together, and there was all this wood back here, and it was an SD curly design, like harmony. I've Googled, like, that guitar is long gone. Yeah. I've tried to find it too. That was my first electric. It did not play great or sound great. It has some sentimental attachment, but the chances of finding that. But then I got my paper route. My dream was a Kramer because of Eddie Van Halen. Mm-hmm. And my local music store is Masters Musicians in Annapolis. And I would go in there, and Kramers were, US built guitars, and for a little kid, like way, way too expensive. And then this was the first year that they made the Focus, which is their overseas. I put this on layaway, a bunch, delivered a bunch of papers and paid it off over like 6 months. And it was my baby. And throughout high school, like, it was great. I loved it. And then I was at a friend's house in like 11th grade or something. And he had the Charvel Model 5, set neck, and it was US built and a much more expensive guitar. And he loved this, and he wanted to swap them even up. And this was before I didn't know about sentimental, I didn't know I was going to have any of that. I was a kid who was like, ooh, a new guitar, a better guitar. Yeah, cool. So I traded it away. Over the years, like, it was the one that I was like, man, if I could have one guitar back, it was that, And of course, my taste changed and my playing style changed. I don't play this style of guitar or that kind of thing anymore. And with all the guitars I have, and a lot of these I really had, if you had been down here 15 years ago or less, I mean, it was a lot more barren. Like, I made my living for a long time with one guitar, Mm-hmm. But I've always favored single coils. And then when I had humbucker guitars, they were like vintage style humbucker guitars. And every once in a while I'd need to do some kind of thing. They were like, man, it'd be really cool to have like some kind of higher gain Floyd Rose thing just for fun. Mm-hmm. And so then I thought, man, maybe I'll find another Kramer, same color, same year, close, I'll find one. It won't be my guitar, but it'll be as close as I can. So I started scouring eBay. I was looking at Reverb, whatever I could find, but I didn't have a serial number. I didn't know, I was like, I'm never going to find my guitar. And Philip McKnight, he has that channel, Know Your Gear, like YouTube channel. He does all those great, like, 10 things you didn't know about Fender videos or whatever. He's, he has this video where the cover of the video is him holding this guitar up to the screen saying, like, why I bought this $300 guitar. He wanted to make a Sir Pete Thorne model. Mm-hmm. And he's like, hey, this is kind of the color. It's got a Floyd. He was going to get Thorne buckers and basically do a poor man's version of Pete's guitar for himself, right, and for YouTube content. Mm-hmm. So I sent him a note. I'd met him a couple times, and I was like, sent him a note and was like, hey man, I've been looking for that color and that year, because they only had this headstock for 1 year. Mm. And I said, they're hard to find like that. And when I found one, it was taken apart, it was just the body. And I was like, if you ever want to sell that, let me know. I know you bought it for this project, but if you end up not loving it or whatever, just let me know. Mm-hmm. And I said, it looks like my first guitar. And I just, I've been looking for one. And he was halfway joking, like, well, wouldn't that be weird if this was your actual guitar? And he's like in Arizona, across the country. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't have the serial number. I said, the only thing I would know is, I said, I put a very specific dent in it when I first got it that broke my heart, And I said, it's right on the top between the pickups. And he takes a close-up picture, and he's like, you mean like this? And the moment I saw it, I was like, holy crap, that's my guitar. That's the one.
Oh my God.
1,000% certain. When I saw that dent, I was like, it's it. And he's like, are you kidding me? I was like, and I was like, look, you don't have to sell it to me now. Now I know where it is. Right. And I was like, you can charge me whatever you want to charge me, because now I want it, And but the whole title of the video is like, why I spend $300. Like, he says in the video what he spent on the guitar. So he's like, I can't even. So he was like, he got back to me in like an hour. He's like, dude, if you want the guitar, I'll sell it to you right now for what I paid for it. And like, I think a bunch of his viewers even like chipped in to pay the shipping. And
Oh
like
man.
2 weeks later, it was in my hands, and I was like, I actually can't believe how much I thought, I went through an Ibanez phase and all this stuff. And I don't like super thin necks. I don't play like I used to. I don't like low action and thin strings. And this thing actually has a huge chunky neck on it for an 8 guitar. And it's just been a blast to play. I got my childhood amp back too that got away from me. And I plugged them in together for the first time like 2 months ago, and it just brought me back. And it was like, holy crap. And then Eddie died. And I was like, I have to play a Van Halen song. I did a video with my kids.
I saw it.
And it's like, and this guitar was like, it was it. I got like nailed the tone. That was the guitar and one of Dave Barber's pedals and that aux box. That was the magic sauce.
That thing is, I'm like saving up to get one because I borrowed one from the dude that produced my last record. And just to do a YouTube video on my channel. And I was just like, wow. Like,
oh yeah.
Because a week before that I bought the Strymon Iridium.
Okay.
And I really wanted to love that. Cause I was like, when gigging comes back, if I go to a gig at Bertha's, I'll just bring a pedal board and run it through the PA. And when I did the video, I was like super bummed because I didn't feel like that Strymon takes pedals well. All the overdrive, I tried all my overdrives. And it just was, everything on the top was all fizzy. I did every bit of EQ I could to be like, maybe I'm just being stupid and I'm not doing this correctly. And it just wasn't working. But when I plugged my 2-rock through the aux and put my pedal board in front of it, it sounded just like it does when I want to gig. And maybe even better because of, and I was just like, okay, then this makes sense. Cause I could do videos in the middle of the night and my kid won't hear it. My wife won't hear it. You know what I mean? That thing is the dopest, dude.
I do most of my session stuff late, or I used to. I still do some. I mean, now that I'm stuck at home, I have more time. But I remember like I would be down here. So normally I have amps out here, and I have cabinets in that little booth in there, and they're mic'd up, and it's soundproofed as much as I can, but especially low end. If I have something cranked in there. We're in a townhouse. You hear it upstairs, and when the kids were little and, they're in bed and it's, 11 o'clock and I'm down here and I'm trying to finish this song. And, my wife will come down. She's like, it's really loud upstairs, and I'm going like, I can't turn it down because the tone will change. And it's like, so I'm like, oh, okay. Let me just try to get this, this last take of this, the chorus or whatever. I got to email this out tonight. And it was always that struggle, but that's part of why I bought it. The other reason why was like guitars, pedals, they're easy to change. Like if I have an idea and I'm like, well, I don't have space. I'm crammed down here. That little booth is fine, but it has a sound, like you can't really get the sound of like trying to get the Van Halen tone, but with a 112 mic'd in there. Just not going to do it. Like you need room and big cabinets and like sometimes I used to actually pull the cabinets out here just because I wanted them to breathe a little bit more and not get that boxy sound like it's in a little padded booth. But it's such a pain like to change cabinets. It's like, oh, I got to go move everything around, move mics. It's like, and I found myself recording with different guitars, different pedals, and different amps. And 95% of what I did was with the same cabinet all the time. And it sounded good. But it was like every once in a while, you're like, man, it would be really cool to just have a different cabinet for this cut. But I would never do it because it was such a pain. So I was like, that's the missing piece. Like, it's exactly that. Your amps, your guitars, obviously, but like your tube amp. And that's just the cabinets and the mics in the room. And I've just been a fan of I've got, I'm UA with everything else, all my interfaces and stuff. So it's like everything they did always seemed to hit the mark. And then when all these players that I admire, started putting up videos when it was first out, going like, this thing not only sounds great, but it feels right. I was like, all right, I'm going to just I'm really reluctant when it comes to modeling on that end. Like, it's one thing to model a delay pedal or whatever, but like once you start modeling speakers and amps and rooms, like it's always just been okay. It's convenient. I get it, but it's not the same, you know?
Right.
And this is the first time I plugged into it. I was like, it feels great. And since I've had it, I probably have used 95% aux tracks, and that's always still up and ready to go. And I almost never have done anything with the cabinets anymore. Like,
yeah, I mean, even the effects in there, like I was super impressed with the reverbs.
oh
like,
yeah.
in that. I mean, it's just, I'm going to get one. It's probably gonna be next month. I'm going to talk to Corey Congilio is going to be on here.
Yeah.
Later in the month, and you know, he's a huge UA user and stuff, and I think I'm pretty sure he's like a beta tester now for stuff that they do. And I was like, I want to talk to him to see if there's like any inside scoop. Are they coming out with the second version of that soon? That if I buy this, I'm gonna be like, damn it, I just bought this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that thing is so great. So are you, when you're running that, are you still rocking that Mayer head too a lot? Like on, I know you were bringing it to gigs. Oh, okay. Okay.
I mean, that is my go-to when it makes sense. And I'm not doing bar gigs nearly like I used to. I mean, I used to be out in bars 6 nights a week, you know, and I don't know how, but I used to lug my super reverb around. So it's not, you know, I'm used to pain in the ass amps, basically, you know. And the Mayer, even though I have a 212 cabinet that I like, I have a 410 that like is, to me, and that's my comfort zone. I grew up playing a super reverb. I love 410s. And I love open back, you know, and it sounds so good that I will lug it around and bring it into places where it's not really overkill. Like for a 100-watt head, like I have it pretty opened up on a gig, and it's not overwhelmingly loud, but there's a feel difference with those huge transformers and that kind of headroom. And whenever I play small amps, they're cool, but it never reacts the way I want to, like as a bread and butter amp, you know. Right. I also just got this little Pro Junior that I love. It's amazing for what it is, but it would bum me out if like every gig, like that's what I plop down, because it's got that mid-range and all this cool stuff going on, and it sounds boxy in a cool way, but sometimes you just want that low E string to just like punch you, you know?
Yeah, totally.
But before I got the Mayer, I would say most of my recording work, I've got, this is a 66 Deluxe down here. But I wasn't using it as a combo. I was just using it as the head and running it into the cabinet of the other room. And I would change that around here and there. I went through a thing where I bought and sold some amps that I wanted to love, and just, they were cool, but I would switch guitars around, but I basically used that old super reverb for a decade and a half. And that was about it. I had that and the Deluxe, and that was my recording amp and my gigging amp, you know. Yeah. And ever since I got this, I'm running into a board, into the aux, and then that's going into a cabinet in the other room, but I don't even have that turned on right now. That's just going in straight to the PA, you know, so all I'm hearing is coming out of the computer speakers, you know.
Right. Sounds awesome.
And I can record at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And the 100-watt head dimed. And I don't have to bother anybody, you know. It's like,
this is like a UA commercial. Where's our sponsorship? No, I mean, I love it. I love it.
I know a bunch of people talk about the 2-note stuff. I mean, there's a bunch of people who've done it. And you know, I've had people send me, I think a lot of people assume that I sit around and try out a ton of gear and like, well, how do you think this compares to that? I'm like, I don't know. And I haven't tried it all. And I'm never going to say like it's better than everything else on the market, because I haven't played any of the 2-note stuff. I played the Iridium for about, 30 seconds at someone's shop, and it sounded cool, but like I haven't gigged with it. I haven't recorded, so it's like, I don't sit around and try out a million things. I try to do my research, and every once in a while it's an impulse buy. And if I don't love it, I sell it. But I've only brought that out to one gig. I'm really curious. Like, I'm much more of an amp in the room kind. And if I was doing a huge tour and it was mostly going through the PA, like I would totally bring it.
Oh,
But
100%.
I'd be really curious to bring it out. But it's I have a couple friends, producers that I do tracks for all the time, and who are very skeptical of this kind of stuff.
Oh man,
And like when I first got it, they would be like, I was like, "Hey, I'm going to send you some tracks for this," and they're like, "Wait, it's a back end model or no?" They're just. I was like, "Look, I'm going to send you 3 tracks for each guitar take. One will be a mic in the cabinet. The other 2 will be the left and like I basically had it like it was 3 different mic setups. I was like, one's a real mic and 2 of them are not. And I'm not going to tell you what's what. Use whatever you want, but tell me which, And they're like, yeah, I used, track 3. I was like, that was the aux. That was the fake.
So when you were just playing there, what cabinet are you going through? A 410 cabinet in the aux, or what was that?
Honestly, I don't remember. I changed it around, and I'd have to change my I hook up to the Wi-Fi on the aux to control.
Yeah.
It's the only thing I wish they would, because my Wi-Fi in here is like 5G or whatever. It's and that only works on the 2.4. And so like I can't talk to it through Wi-Fi through my regular thing. That's the only drag about it. Like,
yeah, my one complaint with it is the power source, that pin power source, instead of just having a normalized 3-prong, not like an amp.
Yeah.
Power cord. That was the one thing I was like, ew. That's the only thing I don't really dig about it. But I mean, whatever.
I don't know for sure. I don't know if they did that because like they do that on all the Apollos too. And I don't know if that's to keep the transformer away from the thing to take noise, like less noise if the transformer itself is not. Like if you use a IC cable or whatever, that's got to be inside the unit.
Takes up that's space, a good point.
But also, I think it might be I don't know. I'm guessing.
I didn't even think about that. That's brilliant. That's probably exactly why. I mean, they think of everything, man. Everything they do is super sexy. Like I've been thinking about ditching Pro Tools to move to Luna, to try Luna, just because it looks super rad. And I mean, I like Pro Tools. I've been using it for 12 years, something like that. But like, it's like I'm looking for something new. I want like all their plugins and everything just looks sexy. Like when you pull up a plugin comparative to Pro Tools, which looks like something out of Matthew Broderick's War Games sometimes. Like if you open up Expand, it's like
I've been like on the verge of jumping ship from Pro Tools throughout the course of my, life that I've had it. And something always like it used to be when I was tied to the Pro Tools hardware and I was like, screw this. And then Pro Tools 9 came out and they're like, oh, you can use whatever interface you want. And they had like plug-in delay. Like I don't have a Pro Tools HD rig. I was on Pro Tools LE and now,
Yeah, me too.
But, and I downloaded Luna and I've messed with a little bit, but I'm always in the middle of projects. And if it's a session that I'm doing for somebody else, it's no problem. I just open up a quick session. I pull in their tracks. But I also do a little bit of producing for people. And I've always got something rolling. So I've always got a handful of songs that are in various states of completion. And I'm always like, well, I'll switch because I want to finish these in Pro Tools. And then I'm learning the new interfaces. Like that's my Achilles heel. That's what keeps me from ever changing. Because I'm like, I just know it and I just want to work and not, but I'm sure once I almost changed the Logic. I'm sure whatever, and they'd all be fine. It's just whatever, whatever your workflow is,
Flavors of ice cream as far as I'm concerned, man. Like, do you like chocolate chip cookie dough or just straight up vanilla? You know what I mean? It's all differently. I mean, I haven't, dude, when I started on Digital Performer.
Oh yeah.
And like 2002, 2003 or something like that. talk about like a caveman experience, comparatively speaking, to like the dolls of today.
Yeah.
Or even like Reason. Like I used to really like Reason for all those like refill packages that they did. Like when they did that Abbey Road series, that was awesome. Like I bought the hell out of that, and I used that Mellotron all the time.
Yeah.
But like Luna just seems like it has. It's funny. Even Charlie Hunter was talking about like COVID has like made him learn how to use a DAW.
Yeah.
So like, and the only DAW, like Carter Mack was the one who exposed him to Luna. So he was like, "This is all I know." So when I asked him about it, he's like, "I don't know," because it's the only thing I've ever I've ever used, but it's pretty dope. So, well, I talk a little bit about like your experience as a producer too, because like, and the bands that you work with too. So like Starbelly, for instance, who you know, you and I both love power pop stuff. So like we come from that Jellyfish school and all that, and Beatles and all that. So what's your involvement in that right now? Like as far as projects that you're talking about working on?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I've been able to squeak out a living, you know, with the guitar my whole life. And as you know, and you've done, and all, you know, all the people that we circulate with, unless you really are lucky or, you know, and successful in a very specific thing as an artist, or, you know, you have to have you got to juggle a lot of stuff, you know, and in the beginning, you know, I did a bunch of teaching when I was young, and I still love to teach, but you know, that's always just been more sporadic when I have time for it. And I do it because I like to do it. But you know, it was bar gigs for a long time. I've done wedding gigs, and when you're young, you focus on, hey, I want to make it with my own music. And I mean, some people do that at, you know, started later in life and or succeed, but it's typically a young person's thing, because you don't need to make a ton of money, and you know, you've got all this passion for it. And then you realize like, well, you have kids and you got, you know.
Yep.
So through my life, I've always been in multiple bands. I've never just had one project, and not by design, just partially just to keep busy, but also just like you. And I think you and I really are cut from the same cloth. Not only, to me, I have two main sides of my music world, like the power pop thing, what I kind of consider the orchestrated music, you know, it's like, has a specific thing about it that I love and is an outlet. But then on the other side, like the R&B and the funk and the soul and the jam, like the improv side of it, like I would never want to just do one or the other. I love both. And like Starbelly is that orchestrated side of music. And then Jarflys, my other primary original project, even though they're great songs, and I can say that without tooting my own horn because I didn't write them. That's all Jimmy Davies, which started off as a side project for the Chicken Shack, that he was writing stuff that didn't fit with them. It was going to be a solo record, and it kind of just turned into a band 20 years ago. But like, I love the side of just being in the moment and creating something, and the improv side, which doesn't make sense in the Starbelly world, you know, but what I do in Starbelly doesn't make sense. Like, I like the fact that they're separate. I would never want to have one project that satisfied every musical craving that I have, you know? And I don't even listen to music like that. I don't want to hear Jellyfish. If they were to reunite, I wouldn't want to hear them go up and just go on these crazy improv jams, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, so like, but it also served its purpose, because for a long time before I was really traveling, I used to play 6 nights a week in Annapolis, like, or, you know, I might venture out to Baltimore. Like, you can't play in the same town that often without wearing out your welcome when you're playing one band and one style of music. So like for a while I had a residency gig at Armadillo's downtown Annapolis 3 nights a week.
Wow.
Like Sunday night with one band, a little cover band trio. It was a lot of fun. We could kind of do whatever we want. Tuesday nights was the Jarflys playing original music. Thursday night I was doing an acoustic duo with this girl Meg, and we did. So it was like, and there were I've met people who've come out to see me play acoustic who will sit around and talk about how they're a fan of the Jarflys and used to go see that, not realizing that I'm even in that band. Like, out of context, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and it was 15 years ago when they used to come see us all the time or whatever. And I get it. Like, but I've always kind of felt like I've been a little bit of a sideman main, even in my own bands. Like I'm like, because how do you market yourself when you spread yourself so thin? You're like, somebody's like, oh, you play music. What's the name of your band? And you're like, I don't know
which one.
Yeah. And
Look, like
they're
Frankie.
try to judge them. Like, what do I think they'd be into the most?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't change it. I've always loved that. But like, I would say my primary original bands for the past 20 years have been Jarflys and Starbelly, two very different outlets. Jarflys hasn't really been putting out any new music for a long time. We haven't. So we get together and play him. Starbelly stopped writing music. We put out our last record in 2002 and then we put out another one in 2018. And ever since we've kind of had a reawakening. We still love each other and play together when we can, and we've done different things, but it kind of turned into a bar band that was doing quirky stuff. We do like God Only Knows, and then a Jellyfish tune, and maybe one of ours, and then a Zeppelin tune. Like, it was kind of like whatever went, but it stopped being an original project. And then all of a sudden we got together, it took us years, but we put together probably what I would say is my favorite thing that I've ever been a part of musically as far as recording. Like, I can listen back to that record and not want to change a thing about it, and share it with somebody and say, hey, go check this out. I love it. Like, every other thing I've ever been a part of, I always feel like I have to go like, well,
here's a caveat.
It's like I always had some apology, because I always never either spoke up for myself, or I always felt like I was a side, The last Starbelly record, I had joined the band like as they were going in the studio. They'd already paid for the record. I hadn't put up. So like, there's things I would have wanted to do differently, but I just didn't.
Right.
I approached it like I was a sideman, but.
Well, people should know too. So look, Frankie G is in here and said hello. So
hey.
Frankie is also a Baltimore musician, but like Baltimore and Annapolis are people don't know this, but there's a lot of live music.
Tons.
And if you go to Baltimore and you go to like Fells Point, for instance, Thames Street is basically like 6th Street in Austin. Like, you can go and every bar has live music kind of thing. So, I mean, I would run into Bryan down there. I'd be playing up the street at the Cup maybe, and you guys were at the waterfront. Starbelly was at the waterfront or something like that. And then same thing goes for Annapolis. Like, people may not know this too, but Bryan is a killing bass player. And I had Bryan sit in with us twice, right?
Yeah.
Which was a lot of fun, because what we do is very improvisationally based. But so, if people don't know that about you, I mean, you can do whatever. And your boys are like that too. I mean, it kind of goes through the bloodline as far as multi-instrumentalists. So
it's funny you bring up the bass thing, because like I never really I didn't ever really think of myself as a bass player for most of my life. And then I bought one and I messed with it. And then it, I said yes to a gig with a band that I played with a lot. And because I knew the tunes, and I was like, oh yeah, I could, like, and something happened last minute. The bass player couldn't make it. And it was acoustic guitar singer. I was like, well, we'll do without electric guitar for this gig. We'll get through, and man, I like really realized at that moment, I was like, I'm not a bass player. Like, this is a whole different, like, I knew the notes, and like, it wasn't a tech. It was like, I'm approaching it like a guitar player. And I really became fascinated with like listening to bass parts. And then I dabbled with, I was doing gigs on drums a little bit. I still don't call myself a drummer at all. And I know you play drums. Like, every time I would even dabble with another instrument, it made me appreciate the whole package even more. And it made me a better guitar player.
Heck yeah.
But you know how it's like anything. You get a new car, you start seeing that car everywhere. You start noticing when you get involved in something. And just like everything I do, I never get into anything a little bit. I'm very obsessive compulsive about, I get a new hobby and I like want to know everything about it. But the bass thing to me, like, I got to the point where I was pretty comfortable with like, I feel like I could play a bass part that is worthy of calling it a bass part, not a guitar player's bass part, but it's almost always been in the studio, and it's always been on the orchestrated side, like coming up with a part. And when you called me about doing those gigs, I was like, I'd love to, but I really had never played a gig on bass in the other world, in the world where it's like, okay, we're going to kind of do our own arrangements and, stretch and fly. And then I knew I was going to be fine for it, but it was totally out of my normal element, even though I'd played bass a bunch, and I had more fun on those gigs. Like, I was like,
you sound great, man.
I was like, it made me almost go like, maybe I want to like start. I almost wanted to join a wedding band on bass just to go and be like, I could go get paid a lot of money. Like, if I'm going doing a wedding gig, you're like, okay. But like, if I could make that kind of money and actually play a different instrument, but then I think about all the amazing bass players in town who like, I was like, I'm not gonna, it's a hard thing to like, I don't want to go out and like spread the word and be like, but I really enjoyed those gigs. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll do it again. We'll do it again, man. I'm sure. What's funny too is like, I can't remember who was in Stan and Joe's, the one that we were playing, but someone was like, man, Ewald's out here stealing all of our bass gigs now. Like, I can't remember who I was talking to, but I mean, because it sounded great. Like, you would have thought we had been playing together for 20 years, because it's like,
I knew the songs. I mean, I knew that, and I think what I always tell people is that it's like, especially talking to students and stuff, or, facility and chops is one thing. And there's some people with just absolute, like, masterful facility that I would never call on a gig or a session because of like a square peg in a round hole thing. Just like you could be the most killing jazz player, but that doesn't mean you're going to play a Zeppelin tune right. You can hit everything at the right time, but the sound and the only way to do that is you have to love Zeppelin to get why it's cool. Because it's not about whether it's hard or easy to play or whatever. It's like, you have to appreciate whatever style, same thing. Like, I mean, even with obviously jazz is not easy to fake your way through. You have to like, that takes a love to dedicate the time to learn to play it well on any instrument. But it's like, a lot of people assume like, well, if you're good at something difficult, you can always put them on something easy in another genre and they'll kill it. You're like, no, you have to, and the people, like, there's people who do that multiple genres really well. Like John Thamakis is a guy who could do a bebop gig and a Zeppelin style gig equally as well, because he gets them both and loves them both. And I think part of the reason, like, I enjoy doing all these things is because it's like, I love all that stuff. I mean, there's very few styles of music that I don't love, really, really get. I mean, there are, but
yeah, like I couldn't play on a country gig because not because I don't appreciate the music, but it's not me.
It
like,
doesn't.
I can't do that for you. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's not my world either.
Yeah. But I mean, I feel like the idea of immersing yourself into an artist to really understand it. Like, I feel that way about improvisation in terms of like the thing I love about, and I'm going to generalize about Fish, but like the thing that I love about Fish is that there's a patience involved in improvisation and in a fearlessness in terms of like, let's just see where this goes. And you play with some guys and they're not into that. They're like, no, that's not, I don't feel comfortable doing that. But like, I do. I like letting something breathe. But if you play with people who don't feel like doing that, then you feel like you're rushing a solo or you feel like you're rushing an idea. So you have to, like, that's a great point. Like, you really have to play with people who get it and who are like okay with going there. And that's a hard thing to find, man. Like, you've got to really, I mean, that's what I liked about having you on a gig or calling some random person I've never played with before. Not only because it's great to kind of change things up and throw some dice on the table, but like, then you make all these great friends that as soon as you play a gig with somebody, it's like being in a foxhole in World War II with someone.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. That's terrible stuff.
I know what I mean.
You know what I mean?
It's
just like you have a moment, you're sharing something and you're creating something with someone else that's like an intimate experience, So it's for me, like hearing you say that, it's just it's like a clarity washed over me in terms of like, oh yeah, like that's really what it is. That's what it's all about, man. I mean, it's hard to find, but like there's so many musicians in our town. Like, people don't think of Maryland as a music town or a music state, or like Baltimore or Annapolis as a music.
It totally is.
You know,
DC, Northern Virginia, Baltimore now, and I've thought about this a lot. Talked to a lot of people about it because like everybody always, and I'm sure everybody thinks this way about their town. You could live in Toledo, Ohio, and know a handful of like killer players, and you'd be like, no, you don't understand. We've got this killer scene. There's great scenes everywhere. There's great players everywhere, but there's an abnormally large number of monster players in this mid-Atlantic area, and there have been for decades and generations. This is not new. And really what I think it comes down to is the right demographic and geographic side. Like Annapolis is a small town, like just like that area in Fells Point you're talking about. When you can drive somewhere and park your car and walk up and down the street and have, a multitude of options of where to go, those are the places that have live music on Sundays and Mondays and Tuesdays. If you live in too small of a town, the weekends are the only time gigs happen, maybe a Thursday.
Yeah.
You go to a huge town like New York, or like, obviously there's lots of places, but you don't have people flooding to Annapolis or to Baltimore to make it like you do in LA. And that. So when you go to Nashville and the bar gigs don't pay, New York, the bar gigs don't pay, it's like half those times you
pay to go play there.
Right. You're not going in. You can't be like a solo acoustic, gigging musician making a living in New York by playing pub gigs. It just, and there's very few towns around the country that have enough work 7 days a week to make it lucrative. And so the thing is, all the good players don't have a mass exodus from town. When you go, hey, I want to make it in this, I want to try to make a living. Everybody doesn't go, well, if you live in a small town, you're like, okay, where am I going to move? Am I going to move to Boston, New York, or Nashville, or LA, or whatever, So you don't have all the good people leaving. And I mean, that was really, I've had a lot of people go like, why, if this was your livelihood, why didn't you ever move to Nashville? And there's definitely times in my life I thought about it, but the main thing that kept me from doing it is that, like, and I don't mean to sound braggy in this, but it's like, I started as a kid working I got a job at a music store teaching that I didn't even really, they came and asked me if I wanted to do it. I lucked into it because I was a kid who hung out in the music store and just played all the time. And they probably figured they could pay me, crap and work, but, so I met the generation above me. I met all these players in town that were well established, and they started calling me for gigs. Again, probably because I was willing to play for very little, and I was excited about it. I wasn't jaded yet,
How old were you?
I mean, I was still in high school.
Okay.
So it's like, I mean, I probably didn't really start doing the gigs regular until like right after I graduated, but I wasn't old enough to get into the bars.
Right.
And the guys were all, but, and obviously there was no internet. There was no way to like market yourself. Like but I stumbled into work. And then of course, the hardest thing to do is get your foot in the door. Right. But I stumbled into getting my foot in the door with all these established people. So the work just kept coming. And it's like, and if something stopped, if like one gig ended, I would get a call. And like, I don't know how many thousands of gigs I've had in my life in different things, different places, but I've never once picked up the phone to like solicit a gig. It's always what came in. And the thing is, I was so busy in my youth in town, and I wasn't making a ton of money, and I certainly wasn't like becoming famous. But I was like never hungry, and I was always working. And it's like, why leave that? Like, why leave to start over in a place that, like, how do I get established and start? And maybe if I had, I would have landed. Maybe my career would have taken a much bigger path. Maybe not, but I don't ever look back on it and wish I had done anything different. Cause like, I also just, once I started a family, I was like, my family's here. I don't want to uproot my family and move to a new town and struggle. And, for the possible chance of becoming a bigger star, I mean, it's like, as a side man, so I just kind of like, I stayed here because you could make a living here. And I think that's why a ton of the people stay here. I know a ton of people who have left and come back.
Oh yeah.
People have moved to New York, moved to LA, moved to Nashville, had a go at it. And they're like, man, you know what? there's so much work here. I'm going to just come back here. And nowadays with the internet, you can do session work anywhere.
Anywhere. Yeah. I mean, and success is all how you measure it, man. If you're putting food on the table and 100% of the way that it's happening is from music, that's success in my mind.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, the only thing I ever really strove to do was like, I wanted to make more money at what I was doing, not because I was trying to be greedy about it, but I was like, when you're self-employed, you take every gig you can get, you work when you can. And I've fortunately gotten to the place where I don't have to work as much as I used to. I don't have to, do the hustle, but there was a good part of my life where like, I think I remember one time, and my kids were born, they were little, but I think I looked at my calendar, I had like 86 straight days of gigs, and some of those were doubles. And part of it was pride. I was like, I'm going to make it, like, this will be like something I can put on my thing. And remember that time I did, and I got to like gig number 75, and like my voice completely went, and I had to like cancel one gig, but at the same time, I'm probably making more money now than I did back when I was working my butt off, because, the bar gigs didn't pay that great. And it was fun and I loved all of it, but there's a certain point where you go, okay, like, how long do I want to be doing this?
Right.
I want to be able to work smarter and not harder. I want to still be able to do what I want to do. And I'm not expecting like boatloads of cash to come flying in, but I also don't want to have to work 7 days a week,
right,
and not take vacations. And, and nowadays with everything, like we were just talking about this before we jumped on, the online lesson thing, there's a lot of ways that musicians can find their niche now. And, And, when you're talking about digital performer, before I had Pro Tools, I had already moved in. I've been in this house for 19 years. So we moved in here in 2001. And this was a concrete storage room in the basement. Mm-hmm. And I built this, and if you saw pictures of the beginning, it looked totally different. It was very sparse. But I did not have a computer for music at that time. Mm-hmm. I had a 16-track reel-to-reel, Fostex, like half-inch, not anything, not like some Studer machine. Mm-hmm. But when I first started down here, I was still on tape. And I was tracking everything. And part of it, I loved it because it kept me honest. I was like, if I'm going to track drums on something, I essentially need to get a complete tape, because punching in drums when you're manning is not
tape.
Yeah. But so I was really reluctant to jump into, and when I got Pro Tools in the beginning, I worked at like a tape machine. I was doing very little editing because I was just like, I thought about it like I did it, and now believe me, I use the digital world and all its glory, but you're never going to be able to do session work from home when you're on tape.
No, dude, no.
Send me so that's why I did Pro Tools. I was like, at the time, I thought I had to be compatible, and at the time, it did matter, but it took me forever to get anybody to trust me to be like, look, I'll come do a session there, or if you send me the tracks, let me, but producers they don't want you to have your mics and they want to have control over it. And I get that. It took me a long time to earn the trust of certain people to go like, okay, you can do your tracks at home. And so it wasn't an overnight thing, but I couldn't have done this 20 years. When I first moved in here, I couldn't do what I'm doing now.
Right. Well then yeah. And then I have to cover this because people will want to know this, but like, so at what point, and you don't have to go deep in depth about this stuff, but like, at what point did PRS come into your life?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a misunderstood story. First, a lot of people think I work there, and they'll put the name product specialist down on the videos, but they've called me different things. I don't work at the factory. I do videos for them, and I do, clinics, and that all started very organically. I've known Paul, and I've known people there for a long time. I did work at the factory in '92. When I graduated high school, I was teaching guitar, and I was played a couple of. I wasn't really gigging or anything, and somebody put my name down as a reference who was applying at PRS when they were still in Annapolis in this little shop, because I was the only person in town they knew who played guitar. But like, why do you put like a 19-year-old kid's name down as a job reference? Like you're gonna, you know. When they called me though, they were like, "Hey, would you want to come and apply for? We're hiring a couple positions, and it's always like body sanding, you know, some, you know, to ground floor, you know, it's like getting a job in the dish room at a restaurant, you know, like you start at the bottom and work your way up." But I was like, "Cool, yeah, that sounds like fun." And so that's where I met Paul, and some of the people who work there are still there now, you know. And it was interesting, and I learned a lot. But I realized, man, I'm not cut out to make guitars and buff them. And, you know, it's fine. But like, I was not loving going into that. I love the guitar part of it. But so I left to pursue music, and I joined this band that was working all the time. I totaled 2 cars, falling asleep at the wheel, because I was gigging all the time and traveling, coming home from like Virginia Beach and sleeping for an hour and a half and going to work and falling asleep during my lunch break in the car. Like, it was not, you know, not good stuff to do. But but like, I didn't really start doing anything officially. I would run into them. Paul used to hire me, or, you know, he would call me to come play their company Christmas party, but I'd bring a telly or a like I didn't really have a PRS, and they got me a guitar to kind of kick the tires on. It was when they kind of started delving more into the Fender world. Like, hey, you know, they made the 513. They got the prototype to go, like, we want an honest opinion of like, would this replace a Strat for you? And of course it didn't at all. Like, it was a very cool guitar. It sounded great, but I was like, it's its own beast, you know? And then it was through the Jarflys, and Jimmy had a PRS endorsement, and he had, like, they were bringing him a guitar that was damaged in shipping or something, a hollow body, and he already had one, and they're not going to sell that to the public. But, you know, it was a cosmetic flaw, but he was like, you know, hey, they'll pass those along to artists sometimes. And I was halfway joking. I was like, you already got one of those, like, hook a brother up, like, you know, I'd love, you know. And they were like, would you want one of these? And I was like, yeah, like, it wasn't, I didn't think it was gonna be free, but I was like, an inexpensive hollow body PRS, like, absolutely. Like, I'm a guitar geek, like, why, you know. Right. The reason I don't have one is because I'm a broke guitar player. I buy Mexican Strats, you know, not hand built, you know, guitars. Right. And they didn't have the SEs and they didn't have any of that then, you know. And I had been, even though I was still mainly making my living in bar gigs, I had started doing a bunch of tours, or a handful of tours, and a couple of them were the bands on, like, I was playing with this band that was signed on RCA. I wasn't in the band, but I was playing gigs with them, and I'd landed this gig playing with one of the original Temptations, like, in overseas, and it sounded a lot, it was great, it was cool, but it certainly sounds a lot fancier than it really is. And nobody goes to those gigs and goes home and buys a guitar because of, you know, what they saw the guy playing. But right. But on my behalf, somebody went to the artist relations team there and said, he's a hometown guy, he's from Annapolis, he plays Annapolis all the time, he's not playing a PRS, he should have something. So they got me a guitar there, you know, got me one to play. And then the SEs came out, and they I was like, well, I don't have a P90 guitar, and you guys make this cool SE with P90s, like, you know. And they were like, oh, sure, you know, you can have one of those. And then I bought, like, actually this guitar I bought from them at, like, it was the first one I bought at an artist deal. And I started, like, I mean, I loved them, they were cool, but I was still a Fender guy at heart, you know, like, those were the sounds I wanted. And then the Starla came out, and I was on a tour with this girl, Rachel Yamagata, and I had 3 guitars with me. I had a Les Paul, a Jazzmaster, and a Tele. And I needed Les Paul for, like, one tune. I didn't need it, but it worked well for one tune. I needed the Jazzmaster for the vibrato, and I was playing the Tele mostly. And they lent me the Starla to try. And I played the first half of the tour with the other 3 guitars. The tour came through Maryland, and I was like, I'd much rather just have 2 guitars to deal with. So I just brought the Tele and the Starla, and I fell in love with that guitar. It became my number one. That was the guitar that, like, all of a sudden I was like, I can go do, like, any gig. I can do a Jarflys gig, Starbelly gig, with touring gig, and just bring that guitar, and, like, a desert island guitar, which for me was always a Strat or a Tele.
Mm-hmm.
And that like changed, like, and I became like just such a fan of, I mean, I always loved their stuff, but that was like, oh my, this guitar speaks to me. But then the demo videos were really just kind of like, hey, come in and do a demo video. And I was like, okay, cool, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, come do another one. And then as they started asking me to do more, like I wasn't charging them because they had hooked me up with some stuff. So it was just kind of like, and then when it became like super regular and they were like nobody, we never sat down and said, hey, well, you do this for us. It was just like, and then they were like, hey, we need to figure out a way to compensate. And in the beginning, it was like, it was barter. It was like, you know, I'll do some videos. And then it just kept snowballing. And it kind of got to the point where like, you know, once like next thing I know, I blink and I'm like, they're, you know,
You're
they're
the guy, dude.
person. And it was like, I mean, but I will have to say, like, there's a lot of people like Corey is great at that stuff. And he does it with Martin and he's done it like, I realized early on, like, I don't want to be like a career demo person.
Mm-hmm.
And like, as cool as it is, it's like, I also like, it's a different gig, you know? And it's like, and it's also like, I watch guys like Greg Koch, you know, he could sit around for hours and just play. And I'd be like, oh man, that's great. Like, it doesn't matter what he's playing, you know?
Right. Yeah.
I like playing music with people. I realize like me sitting with a guitar by myself is not my comfort zone. I'd much rather like, hey, somebody grab a bass and a drum, and then we can like, we'll play all night long. Right.
Yeah.
But I also I just wouldn't want to do that. Like I had some people when the PRS thing started and I did some pedal demos for some friends, or a company or people that I really, really dug, just like you would get a pedal. And if you love it, you want to tell people about it. Right.
Yeah, dude.
I had a few people start sending me things or talk to me about sending me things like, hey, do you want to do this demo? And we'll let you have the pedal for free. And I was like, okay, cool. And I got a couple and it was really cool. And then I got one that I was like, I don't dig it. And I don't want to do a demo and pretend like I dig it if I don't. And I don't want to do reviews and say thumbs up or thumbs down. That I don't. And I realized it's like, I like doing demos for stuff I love.
Yeah.
Not whatever is there. And PRS is like a company. I mean, there's a lot. I love a lot of guitars, but I say as a company, like I love what they're doing. I love where their heart's at. I love their integrity. I love all this stuff. If all of a sudden this stopped and I stopped doing it, you probably wouldn't see me doing any other demos because I'm not really going to go like, let me find another brand to do. It's super genuine. I love what they do. It really helps that I live down the road. So, I mean, like it's a lot easier for them. Like if they need somebody to come in, they don't have to fly anybody in, you know? So, but it really just kind of happened. Like never planned.
It's so cool. I mean, it's neat to see. I like it when you do those demos too, though, because you approach it with those guitars just like I approach if I'm doing a pedal demo. It's like I want to do it like I'm a dude that just walked into a music shop. I don't know jack about what I'm about to plug into, but let's just see what it feels like. You know what I mean? And generally speaking, I do like everything. And I'll say in my videos, I'm like, this is the one thing I don't like about it, but these other things I do like. So maybe I wish there was a pedal that just had these two things in it, you know? But it's funny because I had 3 PRS guitars. I had the 408, the Starla, and the Mira.
Yeah.
Semi-hollow Mira. And it's weird because I loved the 408, but I didn't. The other 2 guitars, they were all great guitars.
Right.
But like you, I'm like a Fender dude, and I think I got in on the artist deal too early because I wish I would have done it right when the Silver Sky came out.
Yeah,
because that is way more my jam, and I still have only played one once. You know, and I think I talked to you about that too. Is like the only thing that I wish was different about it is I wish the neck was sanded.
Yeah,
and I wish the frets were a little bit bigger.
You should try the maple fingerboard one because that's a satin neck.
Oh, okay.
And so it's when when I was doing gigs or different things. I mean, a recording session doesn't really matter. You don't see the guitar you know, and honestly, the gigs they're never weird to me about like, oh, I saw some video of you playing a, you know, a Fender or your Collings or whatever. No, you know, it's not like that. And first of all, I'm not John Mayer. There's not, you know, when I'm playing a gig, you know, even if it's on a tour, it's not in such a public eye where like anybody really gives a crap or, you know, so, but I try to, you know, I use the PRSs because I love them, but like sometimes something needs a 335, you know, and the hollow body, the PRS hollow body is cool, but it doesn't sound like a 335. It sounds like PRS hollow body. It's not meant to sound exactly like a 335.
Right.
So, but the one guitar that I would use all the time was a Strat. And if I needed a Strat, I brought my Strat out, you know, and it was fine. But I was always like talking to them long before the Mayer thing, or, you know, I was like, we were trying to figure out like, because they had some models before that got pretty Stratty, but they were discontinued. And I was like trying to like go, hey man, could you make me one of these? I know you don't sell this model anymore, but, and there was always like, yeah, but Paul's working on some new pickups. And there was always like this thing. And I just never really pulled the trigger, nailed down exactly what I wanted. But there was always this talk of like, I'd love to find a PRS that like satisfied my Strat craving. Like it would be really cool. And then as soon as that everything started with John, even though it was like mainly about his Super Eagle and it was like the thing for the dead, because I would be in whenever I was in the factory, I definitely get a little bit of, you know, early information, you know.
Right.
And so once I realized, oh, they're making guitars, you know, Paul's lending him these Strat style guitars that he already made, and they're checking out pickups. I saw them going down that road, but I never really knew for sure. The talk wasn't yet like, oh yeah, there's going to be a model, but you know, I don't even think they knew there was going to be a model yet. But the moment like I started kind of locking into, I think I figured out like, if you could make me one of these and make it an alder, and I know it's not the 25, it's 25.25 inch scale. It's not 25.5, but like, and the guy that I mainly deal with over there, who was like, you know, the one I would sit around and talk for hours about ideas and stuff, like he was like, he just goes, I tell you what, let's not do that now. Just hang on. There will be something coming around with John, like definitely even closer to the Strat thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was talking like, it's going to be like a year at least, maybe more. And I'm going like, like I just got excited. Like, and then I would like, as prototypes would come along, or he would show me something. I was like, okay. Like, I know I'm waiting for the right thing. And when I played that, the first time I played it, I was like, so worth the wait. And I kept the one that I did that first video with, because I knew if I gave this back and just thought about, well, what color do I want? Or like, if I went, because they sold so many in the beginning that like, there was such a wait for them that I was like, you know, they're not going to put me on the head of the list. So like, I was like, hey, I really love this one I used in the video, and I think I scratched it up. So, you know, can we work out something on this?
Well, it's definitely a cool guitar. And Chris Lester, thanks for your comments, man. So Chris is saying that loved you were playing some Jellyfish in a PRS demo.
Yeah.
And then also looking into getting a DGT model. Those are great too.
I love the DGTs.
I probably have to just like, I've been like lusting after an exotic Strat now too. Like, you know, I'm a huge Sir guy. I have 3 Sirs now, but like for some reason, I don't know what it is about those exotic Strats. I've been hearing nothing but amazing things, and people that are Sir players have been like, oh, if you like the Sir, you'll really like the exotic.
Yeah.
But I gotta play another Silver Sky. I really do. All right. Well, we could talk about this all night. You and I could talk all night. So let's get ready to do the lightning round get down. Are you ready for this, John?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, right. Forgot about that.
So you know the rules here. There are no rules. You know, you don't talk about Fight Club. You don't talk about lightning round after this.
Right.
But what we're going to do, lately people have been, you can explain your answer if you want, or you can just burn through them. So
I'll try not to explain too much, because I know me, I can be long-winded. I don't want to like turn that,
And I'm sorry. And I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, for my Chad Smith look tonight. You do not want to see my hair. That's why I covered it up with an Orioles hat. All right, here we go.
All right.
First one's always the same. You know the drill. Lennon or McCartney?
Oh, right. Okay. 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I would have said McCartney. but I'm gonna because of election week. I'm gonna do a write-in. I'm gonna say George.
Oh, okay.
I like Harrison is my guy.
Okay.
In the
Great
Beatles,
slide
my two favorite songs, "Here Comes the Sun" and "Something," for
Okay.
sure. Two favorite Beatles songs, and his post-Beatle career, just George is my guy.
Okay, cool. And he gets overlooked so much with slide playing, man. Like
Ah.
that slide part on "Free as a Bird." That's like
Incredible.
one of my favorite tunes. That's probably like my favorite Beatles song, and it's
Yeah.
not even a real Beatles song, kind of.
Yeah, his slide playing is great, and his guitar solo on "Something" to me is like could not be more perfect. Like
Oh,
that, like I would not want to hear anybody change it. It'd be like changing the lyrics to the greatest song in the world. Like that solo is don't do a thing.
I could not agree more. All right, hollow or solid body?
I mean, hollow or semi-hollow, or is that same thing?
It doesn't matter. Yeah, either or.
I'd have to say, as much as I love a great hollow or semi-hollow, I love them. But if I only have one guitar, it would be solid.
Okay, cool. Orioles or Nats?
Oh, I'm the least sporty sports guy. I love I've seen games of both. I'd have to say Nats.
Okay, that doesn't surprise me. A lot of
baseball is my favorite sport of all of them, but I'm such a fair weather fan.
All right, meters or Sly and the Family Stone?
Ooh, wow. I'd have to say Sly. Okay. I love the meters. I really love the meters, but like Sly, as far the meters grooves for sure, but songs, Sly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cheesesteak or cold cut?
Ooh, well, cheesesteak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tennis or ping pong?
Oh, I would say ping pong.
Okay.
I hope you're saying to play and not to watch.
To play, yes.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah, right.
Okay. Hans Gruber or Simon Gruber?
I'll say Hans Gruber.
Okay.
That one that came out of left field.
This is probably gonna be easy for you. 410 cab or 412 cab?
410.
Yeah, easy.
Open back 410 all day long.
All right, and this one might be easy too for you now. Starla or Mira?
Oh yeah, Starla for sure. I love them both, but yeah, Starla is my jam.
All right, cool. Last one. Sometimes this is the hardest, sometimes it's the easiest.
Okay.
Spilt milk or belly button?
Easy. Spilt milk. I have to debate with people all the time. And some of my friends, even my son, he's like belly button first. And I get it. I love belly button. It's amazing. But spilt milk to me that's the pet sounds. That's their pet sounds.
Oh yeah, it's the masterpiece for sure, the swan song. You made it through, my friend. Welcome to the other side of the lightning round. Unscathed, as they say. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for hanging out. For all the folks that were commenting, for Chris and Frankie for stopping in. Super appreciate you guys. This will live on the YouTube channel in perpetuity, so it will be around if you want to go back and see anything you missed.
Watch it one
day. Right. So next week I have Adam Miller, who is an Australian guitarist. He's fantastic. So if you guys want to see a killer, he's like in that Tommy Emmanuel camp, but more of the jazz kind of thing.
Have you heard Joe Robinson?
No.
He's a young dude and he sings like a bird. I think he's like one of Tommy's like proteges.
Okay.
And he's another Maton artist, Maton or Maton there. But look him up too. Oh man, there are some monster players out there. The internet is showing us what a big world of amazing players there are. Yeah.
I know, for sure. It's funny because when I was booking all this stuff, I booked this stuff with Adam probably in late August.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, how are we going to do this with the time? And he was like, well, if we do it in November, it'll be easier because your evening will be like my morning. He's like, I'll just have a cup of coffee. It'll be fine, man. So I was like, all right. So anyway, guys, thanks so much for hanging out. We're both going to say goodbye from Maryland. And we'll see you on the flip side.
Thanks a lot.